Welcome to Profiles. I'm Richard Fredrickson, and I'm really someone really special, sort of an iconic Joliet name and family. It kind of, well, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to begin with something that I've had in the back of my mind for years. There's such an Irish heritage legacy here in Joliet. This is one of them right here, representing one family, but there's others. And you know, I don't know if you remember back when they did the Wish Upon a Star, they had the Irish parade and all that wonderful stuff went on. Let's see if we can't make that happen again.
Let's go with it.
And you know why?
Why?
I went to Ancestry.com. Fredrickson's my name, but I'm 12% Irish, which I never do.
Well,
so now I qualify.
I'm only 90% because I drink scotch.
Ed Hennessy is my guest today, and great guy, wonderful family, and we're going to kind of delve into the family political history. But before we do that, Ed, just ever so briefly, tell me a bit about yourself, not your political topics, because I'm going to get to that, but your family. Tell me a bit about the Hennessys and you.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Both sides of my family, my mother's and my dad's, were in politics. My grandfather was a Stubblefield there from Southern Illinois, and he was in politics all his life and was a sheriff. He was a Republican representative at national conventions, warden at Joliet, warden at Stateville, warden down at Menard. He was also out at Lansing, Kansas, when he was Governor Alf Landon called him out there when they were having riots because of his reputation in the prison business. And he ended up being the guard for Landon when he ran for president. I always said that he kept too many of the voters away from him. And then on my dad's side, my great-grandfather came from Ireland. My grandfather, Hennessy, was a Teamster. And he got on the police department somehow from the old Fifth Ward around St. Pat's, which is all Irish, and worked his way up through the ranks, became chief of police, later became a commissioner, and then mayor of Joliet back in the 30s. And I get a lot of abuse for that because he was mayor when they put the bridges in. So, but I imagine that's how my parents met, because one grandfather, they were Methodist, and my dad's side, of course, Irish Catholic. And I don't think either side was too happy about the wedding. But here we are, by the grace of God. Yeah,
back in those days. Hey, listen, if the Mayor Hennessy hadn't encouraged those bridges, we'd still be canoeing our way across the river. So despite all the negative comments we get on those bridges, I have, and I know you have, and I know you have, been behind people who have never been to Joliet before, and the bridges go up, they get out of their car and they take pictures, you know, of the bridges going up, because it's rather unique. Only in Chicago do you see those, I mean, in this Illinois anyway, do you see those kinds of bridges.
Well, we seem to have more trouble getting the bridges back down.
Well, that's true. That's for another show. Yeah, I got one coming up with the mayor here pretty soon, and with the city managers, so we'll talk to them about that. So you talked about your grandfather. This is the one that the street is named after, correct?
Yeah, William A.
William A. And what street is that?
Mm-hmm. That was my dad's father.
Your dad's dad, and the sign is on what street?
It's from Jackson Street Bridge down to Scott Street.
Okay.
The honorary.
Because when you make that left turn, you see that up at Hennessy.
Yeah, we had the pipes and the drums, and everybody was out for that.
Did you? What year was that? That was only a few years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, yeah.
I missed that. Dick Schuster wouldn't let me out that day. Otherwise, I would have been down there.
Yeah,
I love the bagpipes.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, so we're talking with Ed Hennessy, and Irish legacy, Joliet history, actually up in Lockport as well. A lot of the canal workers were Irish. So there's a lot there. And I want to give credit where credit's due. Karen Ward is one who encouraged me to get you here today.
My cousin.
Yeah. Is she? I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was in Jackie Maloney. In fact, her grandfather was a state rep, and her dad was Jackie Maloney, would be my cousin, and it'd be my sister's Margaret's Evelyn's child. So she'd be the grandchild there. So we're like, what, second cousins?
Yeah. I was going to ask you toward the end of the interview why you ran and became so interested in politics. But now I know because your mom and your dad were both
Yeah, both
involved.
sides. I was involved in it since I can remember.
Yeah.
I learned how to drive a car with my dad when he'd go around to different meetings, and he was chairman of the county zoning board, I believe. And Frank Masters would be there before Frank was state's attorney.
And then judge too, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I drive, and he had the first car that I ever saw that had automatic drive. It was called Fluid Drive, an old Buick. He let me drive that, and I thought, my God, this is something
This
else.
was, what, 1950s?
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
1940s.
And what okay.
No wisecracks.
So your political history, you're driving people around the meetings, dad, and mom's involved, and
And
so
yeah.
the
In
township, were you involved in the township?
I was a township, the first one I was elected to was a township trustee. And then I was elected to the Will County Board of
No, wait,
Supervisors.
don't skip ahead like that. I want to find out what the township trustee does.
Well, the same thing your township board does now, really,
Okay.
which is very little. I think Illinois is
Oh.
one of the very few states
Yeah.
that still has. I
There's
think Illinois has
townships.
more governmental bodies than any other state.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're correct.
And from there, I got,
So you went to the county from there.
yeah.
So what is it like to knock on doors and ask for someone to vote for you?
It's a challenge because you either run into people who don't have time or who are enhanced by it or who hate your guts or, but it's just interesting. Even in high school, I was a class officer. I was president of the student council. So, you know, it's always been that way. And
What school?
Joliet Catholic. And,
Joliet Catholic?
Yeah, class
And it was
of 53.
downtown, right?
Yeah, well, right up on the hill there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So always politics in your blood. Will County Board. Well, you're actually on the Will County Board Supervisors. What is that? Is that different?
That's the same. Well, you had a different way of electing then. Back in those days, you ran for the whole township. You had and depending on the population, you had a township supervisor and then what they called assistant supervisors by the court. So Dick Tezak at that time was the head of it, and then Jimmy Bell, Eddie Talbot, and I were the assistant supervisors. So, and then right immediately after that, they changed it and went to the term they have now, where you have the different districts with different guys. So,
Do you recall, and it doesn't have to be anywhere exact, but in kind of a general sense, how large was, what was the population of the county when you were supervisor?
oh boy, not very large.
Yeah.
I know when my dad was mayor, I think Rainer Avenue was the city limits,
Yeah, isn't that
and beyond
something?
that was just the Heine Otis's farm and Rooney's Corner,
Right.
which
And
was
then
out on Larkin.
Who was it that was criticized for building that first, what we call a shopping center, what we call today?
Bill
a
Lipsey.
Bill Lipsey, yeah.
I've got a picture of the original ranch.
Yeah, he's
I
a-
can remember going there.
Yeah.
It was actually a log cabin.
Really?
A big, huge place, and it had a big screened-in porch, a huge fireplace where they grilled the steaks in and everything. And it sat right where the Walgreens is there now on
Yeah.
Jefferson Street. But
Wow.
I can remember going out there, and that was way out the country.
Yeah, that's what he said. He
And
said
the only thing further out from there was Rooney's Corner.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers Bill Rooney, of course.
And then,
But the first job I got when I was out of the Army, my dad was mayor, and he got me a job with the Kessler and Stapleton engineers. And they were doing the layout for I-80 from I-55 into New Lenox. And we worked on that all summer. And even back then, there was nothing out there beyond Larkin Avenue. That was in the probably 1955, 56.
Was this before Honey Otis was selling fruit and vegetables out there and
Well,
what we would call Shorewood probably today, or Troy then?
Yeah, Honey Otis's store, as it is now, wasn't there at all. They were selling basically, out of they had a tent really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that as far west as 52 though, or 59?
No, it was nowhere near there. Thank God. No, you were probably right there around Midland Avenue.
Okay. Because that was really that.
That was it.
Yeah.
There was nothing else around there.
That's
I
up-
think when my dad was mayor, I think the population there was only about 40,000 people.
Yeah. Now today we're in what? Grundy County.
We're probably going to be in Ohio. Or not Ohio, but Iowa.
We got the Plainfield schools in
Yeah.
Joliet. It's
And
really something.
We'll annex Iowa and send some trucks there.
So Will County Board of Supervisors, and then did you ever serve in the city council?
Yeah, I was city councilman for.
You were?
Yeah.
What year?
50s and 60s. No, the 60s and 70s.
Who were, name some of those mayors.
Berlinski,
Okay.
Keck,
Carl Keck? Or was his brother?
his brother.
Brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting there.
And then I didn't run for a third term, and I believe it was Keck appointed me to the zoning board, where I've been ever since. That's about 45, 46 years. About 7 or 8 different mayors.
So I saw the zoning board thing on there, and so
And I was served concurrently on the plan commission too for half of that time.
but now you're on just zoning.
Yeah,
right?
it got to be a little bit much, and I didn't, because they were one after the other.
Yeah.
And
Plus you don't get paid for that, do you?
no.
No. The what over the years, 40-some years of being on the zoning board, and then some of that time on the planning board, do you recall the most interesting case that came to you about either a development or a zoning change or a new business coming in and asking for this or that was kind of, whoa, kind of shocking to you that they would actually come in there and ask for that, or a very successful business that came during those years and asking for zoning?
I can't really think of anything else that outstanding. Some of the biggest issues we had basically were, just routine things that people have bias with anyway, depending on what your point of view is.
Yeah.
Not offhand, I really can't think of anything.
Does it help to bring the contractor with you when you go before the board, or does it help to bring an attorney with you, or is that something you'd rather not see?
It helps the petitioner to have someone there.
Mhm.
A lot of these people come in and they just get wiped out because if you have neighborhood groups. Probably the biggest change, I think, in the zoning occurred when they started these neighborhood groups. The St. Ray's Homeowners Association. And then you had the St. Pass after that, and then St. John's. Today, I understand there's about 19 or 20 of them.
Really?
And they vote collectively. So even if you're not in St. Ray's, a cathedral area, but a smaller group, they all join together to advocate or
Sure.
go against something. And that's a powerful political weapon. And a lot of times they influence the vote because the people in a political point of view, whereas me on a appointive job, I don't have to worry about re-election. But if you're in that position, even when I was on the city council, politics enters into it. And that changed things a lot. That would answer your first question. The most interesting thing that's happened was the influence that these homeowners associations have.
Well, would you say is rather unique for Joliet? I mean, does the city of Aurora or Elgin have that, do you think?
I don't think so. Joliet, the way it was originally set up, just with the churches I just mentioned, the church groups, you know, in the old days when my grandfather was mayor, and you had wards, and they're all ethnic. Southeast side was Italian, then you had the Irish, then you had the Croatian, the Polish, and the members of the council represented that group.
Interesting.
So that's where but it stayed that way pretty much. You know, we still go by the St. John's Homeowners Association, St. Pat's Homeowners Association, the Cathedral Home. You still have that influence there, but it was not that overt that these people come in and actually, as a group, you know, they make demands.
Yeah. It's
And
like,
they have every right to do so.
yeah. Well, there's power in population. And,
They're almost like lobbyists,
Yeah.
really, organized lobbyists.
and it's still going on today.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, at our last zoning board meeting, we had two different groups, two homeowners groups, with two different opinions on one subject. One homeowners group wanted it, the other one didn't. But they come in and let you know that they're there.
Yeah.
And
So how many members on that zoning board?
7.
7. Is there a rationale? Why 7? Why
I
not
have
8
no-
or
I
6?
have-
Or,
It's just an odd number, I suppose. You're supposed to have 2 members of the state statute, I think, requires 2 members of the zoning board to be on the planning commission,
oh,
which
okay.
is why I was there for many years. For a long time, I don't think there were any on there. But Joliet, I think, has its own, and there is 1 member that's on. So.
Okay. So you and John Keller, you get together and talk about the different issues. John Keller's on the planning commission. You can't miss it.
Well, my good friend Bobby Wunderlich, after he lost
Oh,
the
sure.
mayor's thing, he was appointed,
Yeah.
and that was a good appointment. Bob's very active, and
Another great
good
Joliet
choice.
name. So let me go on here. We're talking with Ed Hennessy, by the way. Kind of an iconic name, an iconic guy. There's lots of history. You probably should set up another meeting just to talk about the history of Joliet with some of the folks that I have met through the years here since I've only been here since 1978. So,
look how it's aged you.
yeah, and that's because I was in Joliet. I didn't age at all when I was in Aurora or
Sitting there
Geneva
waiting for
or
a
St.
bridge to go
Charles.
down.
All right, so you're a committeeman, and you've been there for almost 60 years. Why? What in the world? Well, first of all, what does a committeeman do?
Well, basically, you're fighting for your candidates,
Okay.
and you're supposed to be in touch with the people in your area, so that you have access to them and you can influence their opinions. I was a Republican committeeman for all those years. I think when Bill Barr ran for Congress first time, he asked me to run the St. Pat's area. There wasn't there was an opening there.
Mhm.
And he asked me if I would consider running for it, and which I did, and I won. And I've just been a committeeman every place I've lived ever since. Lately, I think I would call myself more of an independent than a Republican. I certainly don't agree with all the issues as they're being handled today. But basically, it's to get the vote out,
Yeah.
especially
Well, I think
your
that's more
candidates.
important than anything else, just to get people to vote,
Yeah.
whether you're a Republican or independent or a Democrat. There's just still too many people who don't vote.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like people are complaining about the virus, but don't get the shots. Don't realize that
That's the same
they're the
thing
ones
as-
keeping it
Yeah,
going.
it's the same thing with the guys who give the most hell and high water about so-and-so and this political and that political, and they don't vote.
Yeah.
Vote out there. It's coming up in the not. You know, it's when we're taping this in December, and you'll probably see this in January or the last week of December. It's just kind of like your accountant tells you to prepare for your taxes all year long, not just, in March as you frantically get set for the April 15th or 16th date. You should be talking about who you want to represent you throughout the whole year. when I walked in here, this brand new room, by the way, it is, what is this called, Dick? It's called the...
Councilman's Lounge.
Is that what it is? Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
This table here is big enough for a shuffleboard table. I think it's a beautiful table. So I'm driving down I-55 over the weekend, and I think it's you passing me about 80 miles an hour because you've got that license plate that I thought was Joliet 1, but it was, you have Joliet, right?
Just Joliet.
Yeah. And so whoever you are, we'll find out. We'll
Slow down.
Yeah, we'll get you in here for an interview. So, Ed Hennessy, the political history of the family, is that going to continue? Do you have any other siblings or grandkids or second cousin twice removed that are into politics?
My Uncle Dutch, his kid, Mikey, was on the park board, I think, for years. But he's the only other one that I'm aware of, yeah.
Okay.
The rest of them were smarter. They took paying jobs.
Ed, that's funny. You are something else. You continue to delight people with your humor and your seriousness when you're there at the zoning board. You can watch the zoning board and the planning board
Commission, yeah.
and the city council right here on Channel 6. Did you know that? And when you snowbirds, either you're already gone or you're going to take off on the 26th of December, you can catch us on Joliet TV. Is that right? Joliet TV? That's it, right? Okay, Joliet TV on YouTube. And you can catch all the meetings and you can stay abreast of all the information, what's happening in Joliet. And so we also welcome you who are watching on Joliet TV. So, a bit about the Irish heritage and history. One of the first places that I visited when I first came to Joliet was St. Joe's. And it happened to be whatever, I didn't know it.
At the hospital, or?
No. Well, that's St. Joe's Hospital, too. I've been there several times. The park.
Oh, the park. Okay.
And it happened to be some Irish celebration. It wasn't St. Patrick's Day, but it had an Irish band on there. And so I walked away thinking that this was kind of the place where the Irish hung out at St. Joe's Park. Not Gaelic Park, which is a few miles away.
Across the border.
Yeah. So what's happening with the Irish in Joliet today?
Well, I hope they're multiplying, and seem to be doing all right, I suppose. St. Pat's area where I grew up is mostly Spanish now, I believe. I drive by once in a while just to,
Sure.
check the old neighborhood out and everything. But it's dispersed. America is a land of disbursement and many.
Lots of diversification in Joliet today.
And, it's always been that way, and it's been a great thing for this country. I believe in all the, immigration and treating people fairly and all that. But your ethnic groups that were here traditionally aren't the majority anymore.
No, it is interesting looking at the history of legal immigration into this country, and back with the Irish and the Poles and these Eastern Europeans. Why Joliet? How did they end up here in Joliet?
Well, my great-grandfather David, who I never knew, Hennessy, came from Ireland. My grandfather spoke with a bit of a brogue, and they came through Boston and settled in Joliet for work. What was going on?
Steel mills or the canal?
Yeah, sure. And because of the variety of people, if you're English speaking, you had a bit of an advantage as an Irish immigrant, which probably got him onto the police department when he was a young man. And living in the 5th Ward, which is all Irish, there was probably 15 Hennessy families living down there around Morgan, McDonough, Comstock, Pleasant Street, in that area. They settled there, which today isn't done that way. Everything's more blended, which is the way it should be.
Sure. Like good blended whiskey.
Well, no, I prefer single malt scotch.
You?
Yes.
Hennessy, right? Hennessy.
No, Hennessy's a cognac.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, sure, that
It's-
little bottle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dick Schuster showed me his, when we go over to his house, he's got this bar there, and he's got all that stuff in there.
Well, we should have had the meeting there.
Yeah, yeah. Millie sometimes bartends, for us. That is not true, by the way, because I will have to see Millie later and she'll kill me. So, I've always said this, both on the radio and on cable TV, whatever we happen to be on. I have the deepest respect for people who have to knock on doors or people who volunteer to do public service. And you've done that for over 60 years, really. And for being 49 years old, it's a remarkable thing that you've done, Ed, and I want to congratulate you. And
Well, I've never let maturity judge my
there you go. You,
my judgment. Yeah.
you and your family and the Hennessys have a great new year. I wish you a Merry Christmas, but by the time this is on, Christmas will be over. But a new Christmas in 2022 for you and your family. And enjoyed the conversation. We wanted to do that for a long time, and now we have. And we'll invite you back. Maybe we'll do some Irish history.
Okay.
You think can you play the role of Dr. Sterling and give me a little Irish history?
Well, I suppose I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
I know you take trips over to Ireland. Not that I would do this because you're here, but my two favorite countries to visit, number one, Ireland.
Yeah, beautiful.
And it's interesting, I was told by the guy who was taking us around to the different places in Ireland, and he said that the Irish loved John F. Kennedy,
Oh yeah.
and who do you think the other president was?
That the Irish would love.
The American president.
Hmm?
The American president. It was John F. Kennedy, and I was told it was Reagan. For
Well-
whatever reason, they liked the Reagan. I'm not talking about any current guys, but they really enjoyed that. And coming in third that they enjoyed was Clinton, Bill Clinton.
Ah.
They liked Bill Clinton a lot
Well,
over
that's
there. So it was interesting. I'm Richard Fredrickson, and you have joined us, and we thank you for spending some time with us. Keep watching. We have other people lined up, and maybe you have someone in mind. Well, down there somewhere on the screen, they'll have a contact for you to add to the show. Why not? Have a great holiday. Have a brand new, beautiful 2022, and we'll see you next time. Take care.